thoughts now on Iran's large-scale retaliation.
Israel has kept tight restrictions on information about Iranian strikes, but the damage at Beit Shemesh was too much for secrets. Mangled cars and shattered concrete. Police say most of the dead were hiding in a bomb shelter. Israel's air defense has made hundreds of interceptions, but it can't stop everything. This is what Iran has been retaliating for. The latest strikes on Tehran, part of an ongoing US and Israeli onslaught that has killed Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei and up to 40 senior Iranian figures. President Masoud Pezeshkian, speaking from an unknown location, threatened to leave Iran's enemies hopeless.
The United States and Israel should know that this will bring them nothing but shame. And our dear nation, who are mourning the passing of this great martyr today, with their presence and their participation in mosques and on the streets, we must join hands and thwart the evil plans of the enemy.
While some Iranians have been celebrating the Ayatollah's death, there has been mourning too. Dressed in black, thousands filled Tehran's Engelab Square. They spoke of their shock and grief.
We kept saying from last night until the morning, it's a lie. Unfortunately, it was the truth.
We lost our dearest person. We lost our elder. We lost our master. We gathered here because of this. I don't know what to say, really.
In Minab, at a school hit by the Israelis or Americans on Saturday, rescue workers dug through the night. Iranian authorities say at least 165 people, mostly schoolgirls, were killed here. The US and Israel want regime change, but the Iranian government is moving quickly to prevent a power vacuum. A provisional leadership council has been appointed, with senior cleric Ayatollah Ali Reza Arafi among its members. The aim? Stability until a new supreme leader is chosen. Rory Challens, Al Jazeera.
Now let's go to Tawhid Asadi, who's live for us in Tehran. Tawhid, there have been more strikes on Tehran just in the last few minutes, but take us through what you're hearing and what you're seeing.
Yes, indeed. Over the past 1 hour, I may say, we heard sound of fighter jets and also sounds of massive explosion. Reports are coming that both in the east and west of Tehran, explosions have happened, and that runs the risk of not just the military headquarters being targeted, but also the civilian residential areas. And on that, we also received reports from Nilufar Square, one of the residential areas targeted. According to Mehr news agency, at least in this unique incident, more than 20 people have lost their lives. So that is indicative of the very scope of the military strikes on Iran, which does not include the political centers and the military headquarters, but also it goes to the civilian fatalities. And it is started in one of the maybe politically most important areas in Pastor neighborhood, where the office of leader and office of actually president are located. And on that also we witnessed a lot of civilian buildings also damaged and in some cases fully demolished. And that is a sort of concerning situation, specifically in respect of the growing numbers related to the fatalities. In one instance, the head of public relations of the Ministry of Health came out to say that 180 children have been killed in southern parts of Iran, and with a particular reference to an elementary school in Minab, in which more than 160 students were killed. That is a very disastrous climatic situation in terms of civilian casualties.
Tawhid Asadi live for us there from Tehran. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel will escalate its military campaign against Iran, pledging to intensify strikes.
Our forces are now striking in the heart of Tehran with growing intensity. and this will only increase in the coming days. However, these are painful days. Yesterday, here in Tel Aviv, and now in Bet Shemesh, we lost dear people.
Now, Nida Ibrahim is in Ramallah, in the occupied West Bank. Nida, we've been hearing sirens are ringing out in Tel Aviv this evening. Do you have any idea of what damage might have been done?
Well, we're still waiting to see what damage has been caused due to the Iranian-launched missiles to not only Tel Aviv, but also Jerusalem. We did not hear of the ambulance service saying that they treated any casualties in Tel Aviv itself, but in Jerusalem, they were talking about dealing with 5 injuries. One of them is a man in a moderate condition. They were talking about 2 people who were in a state of panic. But also, we've heard from Palestinian medical services inside Jerusalem saying that they've dealt with a woman's injury. And as we continue to hear reports of projectiles or intercepting missiles, a shrapnel falling into places near a Palestinian hospital in occupied East Jerusalem as well. So because of the nature of the ban that the Israeli security forces have placed on Israelis or anyone really for that matter, publishing any videos from the sites of the attacks, talking about casualties, we are still receiving very limited information about these casualties, and we continue to monitor. Like the attack in Bet Shemesh, for example, we only knew of the 9 people who were killed only very few hours later after the incident first took place in the early hours of Sunday.
And in that attack in Bet Shemesh, we're hearing that 11 people are also missing, and we won't get information on that because of the Israeli military censor. But one thing they're not censoring, the Israeli military, is that projectiles, Nida, have been launched from Lebanon. What are they saying about that?
Well, the Israeli forces and Israeli media are talking about 3 projectiles being launched from Lebanon. Now, if that's confirmed from the Lebanese sources, this is specifically we're talking here about Hezbollah, then that would be the first time the party involves itself in fighting with Israel since both parties have signed and agreed on the ceasefire agreement in November 2024. But as far as the Israeli forces are concerned, now they're talking about 1 projectile that was intercepted and the 2 others that fell without causing
thanks
any
for
damage
your
or
patience, everyone. I
casualties
appreciate it.
whatsoever. But what we're hearing
I ate
also
something.
is that the Israeli war jets have soon, after these projectiles were launched from Lebanon, according to the Israeli
Before
forces, soon
I went
flew
to eat,
and are hovering over Lebanese soil.
I was telling you that there were reports of
if they did not
explosions
that I've started
in Tehran.
So it's still
I've been seeing some more of those.
For now, not confirmed
reports.
yet, but it will be an interesting development to watch if Hezbollah indeed joins the fighting this time.
And then Israel, I believe, actually confirmed they were striking Iran.
So much. Now, Iran's foreign minister told Al Jazeera Tehran will.
Yes, 24 minutes ago, the IDF said the IDF continues to attack the targets of the Iran terrorist regime in widespread waves of attacks in Iran. We have now watched another wave of attacks against targets of the Iranian terrorist regime in the heart of Tehran.
But again,
they said
this is not
there are more
something
alerts.
Against Oman. This is not something against Qatar. This is not something against any other neighbor country. This is against American targets.
So again, just to mention this again, 24 minutes ago, the Israeli Defense Forces said that their Air Force has now launched another wave of attacks against targets of the Iranian terrorist regime in the heart of Tehran.
If the attacks are stopped and there is enough explanation, we will consider how to react.
Now, Iran continues to strike U.S. assets across the Gulf, targeting several military bases. The smoke was seen in the industrial area in Qatar's capital, Doha. Strikes also hit Bahrain, Jordan, Oman, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. Attacks have also been reported on airports, residential buildings, and hotels. Shelter-in-place alerts have been issued to citizens across the region. The foreign ministers of the Gulf Cooperation Council have condemned Iranian attacks targeting the region in a joint statement. The GCC has called them grave
Give me one
violations
moment
of sovereignty,
here.
good neighborliness, international law, particularly due to the targeting of civilians and civil objects. The statement says GCC states reserve their legal right to respond and to take all necessary measures to defend their sovereignty, security, and stability, including the option of a military response. It also demanded an immediate halt to the attacks, emphasizing that Gulf stability is essential for the global economy and maritime navigation. Let's cross over to Axel Zaimovic, who is here in Doha. So you've heard the statement there. It has had a regional impact. Tell us what you're
if
seeing.
You missed it, it says on the screen a drone
what we've seen in the
hit
past,
an airbase, a UK airbase in Cyprus, the island nation of Cyprus. No injuries reported. And also, about an hour or two ago,
we also seen cities
rockets were launched from Lebanon,
but we've seen also some
reportedly by Hezbollah at Israel for the first time since the ceasefire with Hezbollah and Israel in November 2024.
In Tehran, they evacuated all the staff.
So that happened as well.
Attack, a flagrant violation of attacks, but also we're seeing that Jordan has summoned Iranians ahead of mission in Amman.
A quick thank you to David Todds, Sean 94, Abu Balhandis. Thank you. Also, hang on a moment here.
As you mentioned, the meeting.
I want to shout out our moderators too, but I owe a couple thank yous to
the GCC foreign ministers are urging
Ruth at WSY, Stop the Bully Ban in Scotland, Aaron Julie, Knox Corvus, Susie Sean. Thank you again, David Dodds.
This is the main
Air Fryer,
meeting, despite
Nathan, Express Investing.
Security challenges in this very sensitive
Thank
times,
you. And all of our moderators who are here, we have moderating right now.
Region into to destabilize
really appreciate it. We could not have our chats without our moderators. Linda Belklari and Misha moderate for us on X, on Twitch, our moderators over there. 13 Alamo, Bastion Girl, Big Ball of Yarn, Good Luck Duck, LB Prairie on Idaho Star, I Got That Fire, Mark HNC, Matthew Kohai 3, Sarah and Surly Dib.
We know where those missiles were headed and have them
also on Twitch, thanks to John Deeds and Justin D. Winters.
Well, there are.
Bite Smarter.
Interesting that's happening here.
Blank Dad, Blank Soup, Zesito, Annie Cush,
Patriot,
the Bearded Sensei,
system being deployed. They were doing
and also our Facebook
shooting down all this
moderators too. Really appreciate it. Kay Lowry Body, Margaret Riley, Shannon Davis Hughes, Paul Anderson, thanks. Thanks Christy Clapp and Barry Eisler for subscribing over there.
So the Defense Ministry says they're trying to take this fight offshore. They want to intercept these missiles and drones above the waters of the Gulf, but they're trying to kind of keep it away from there, and that's one of the reasons why we're not hearing any of these loud explosions. And even if they happen, it's quite distance, and it seems very, very further away from the situation what we had on Saturday, for example.
Thanks also Fred Flintstone for the membership. Thanks very much, Fred. And also Abu Mahandis. That's very nice of you, Abu. I really appreciate that. If you get a membership from Abu or Fred or a free or a gift sub on Twitch, please make sure you thank the person who gave it to you. Thank you again, Abu Mahandis. Very nice of you. Also, Fred Flintstone. Thank you.
Israeli attack on Iran and a fresh threat from U.S. President Donald Trump. Writing on Truth Social, he said, Iran just stated that they're going to hit very hard today, harder than they've ever hit before. They better not do that, however, because if they do, we will hit them with a force that has never been seen before. As the U.S. headquarters for the Operation CENTCOM released new pictures of Operation Epic Fury, it also confirmed the first U.S. military deaths. 3 service personnel killed, 5 others injured. It's reported they were based in Kuwait, one of Iran's retaliation
Sorry, I
targets.
got to reopen
The
something
names of the
here.
dead have not been released. The families
I got to
will be
reopen
informed
the chat
first.
window
In
here.
a series of media calls on Saturday, Donald Trump refused to put a time
The
limit on the
current
war,
time is
insisting it will
2:22
continue
a.m.
for as
Israel
long
time
as necessary.
and
One of his
3:52
biggest
a.m.
supporters
Iran time.
hailed the president's actions.
The mothership of terrorism is sinking. The captain is dead. The largest state sponsor of terrorism, Iran, is close to collapsing. The leader of the
Quick
largest
thanks
state
also
sponsor of
to
terrorism and his
James
entertainment
Oakes, thanks for the memberships. Joseph
Democrats
Miller,
are
David
calling
Dodds,
for an
Ray
emergency debate
Pavarotti,
in Congress
thank
on
you.
the next steps.
And
Americans want him to focus
United
on the
Tarps.
crises here at home. Instead, he is
Thanks
busy
very much. All
getting
right,
us
let's get
involved
back to
in
updates. Let me
quagmires
see what's
overseas that
out
already
there.
are becoming
Again, a lot
deadly
of strikes
to
reported
soldiers.
over the
Donald Trump
last
said he
hour or
intends to
so
speak to
in
the
Iran
Iranians
and
the
in
next couple
Tehran.
of days, but added he has
the,
no idea who will be on the other end of the call because of the level of damage inflicted on the Iranian.
The Israeli military says they are
Alan Fisher,
attacking
Al Jazeera,
Tehran
the White House.
again, carrying out
Now,
strikes
Teresa
in
Parsi is the
Tehran.
executive vice president of the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. He joins us live from Washington, D.C. Teresa, we'll get into succession in just a moment, but I want to talk strategy. I've been speaking to people in Washington, D.C., trying to get an idea of what the U.S. steps will be next. And I heard
Channel 12 Israel
Donald Trump is trying
is
to
reporting, hold
to
on a moment,
the Iranian regime is that they will keep bombing and they'll keep taking out senior
Here
leaders
is this.
until they find something.
I am seeing
Now, this might be the next
couple things.
set of people that take over in Iran. Do you have any
Channel
sympathy with
12 Israel reports that the Israeli military has begun a wave of attacks in Lebanon after those rockets were fired from Lebanon for the first time since November 2024. So Channel 12 Israel reports that Israel has begun to carry out strikes in Lebanon. Also, there is a photo I've seen floating around. N12 posted it, Faytux Network posted it. I don't know if it's legit, but it shows like big explosions in Tehran. We do know that the Israeli military is carrying out strikes in Tehran because they announced it. But I'll post a link to it in the chat, but I don't know if it's legit.
The idea that eventually there would be someone there that would agree to surrender would essentially necessitate not just taking out.
I would certainly expect Israel to
but really
carry out
destroying
strikes
the
in
country as a
Lebanon
whole
after those
before that
rockets
willingness
came in
to
from
emerge.
Lebanon.
And during that time, and no one knows, and the administration does not know how long that would take, even if it's achievable. During that
Also,
time,
one other report from N12 News, they say there are reports of heavy explosions in Tehran, Bushehr, Abadan, Mashhad, Abbas, Ijer, Chabahar, and other cities in Iran. Sounds like a major round of airstrikes going on in Iran.
Institutions that allow it to do so. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard, the clue's in the title, it's there to guard the revolution, and other institutions. So it's likely that succession will be fairly swift. I mean, when Khamenei died, it was 24 hours before the next supreme leader was chosen. So take us through what you think happens in the next couple of days when it comes to succession.
Oh, I just
As
saw
you mentioned,
this.
It is very crucial for them to do this, not only in a swift manner, but also in accordance with the rules that have been established. They want to show that they're in control.
CNN reports that the 3 U.S. service members who were killed in action died in a suspected drone strike.
The question, of course, is whether they will go for a temporary solution, having
In
a
Kuwait.
council rather than having
That's from CNN.
supreme leader for the duration of the war and postpone that decision, and perhaps even turning it into permanently a council. This is what the Constitution actually said that should have happened a long time ago, and they didn't pursue that. So it will be very interesting to see exactly how they move forward on this. But I think what we've seen so far is that they've taken great effort to give the impression that they are in control of the process.
But that idea of being in control is very interesting because it, like you said, it means that the Islamic Revolution survives. Trump has decided that he might speak.
One source said the Department of Defense was still investigating how an Iranian drone managed to penetrate the base's air defenses.
Iranian human rights organizations. There's a lot
So
of
again,
people
CNN
protesting
reports.
outside of Iran. Do you get the feeling that the protest movement has been abandoned because of this, and they'll just deal with whoever comes next?
I think from the outset, the belief that the Trump administration would care that much about democracy or the rights of the Iranian people is just so absurd. I don't even know how to address it. Trump
Just
has
to
made it very
pass
clear
along
he
their
wants to deal with
report.
people that are willing to
They
serve
said
his
that the
interests.
3
In the case
service
of
members
Venezuela,
killed
it's his interest to make sure that stability and the security
died in a
situation of
suspected
Venezuela is
drone
intact.
strike early
Instead of
Sunday
voting
in
for
Kuwait
the person who had
at a
won the
U.S.
Nobel Peace
military
Prize,
base,
who
and a
whose
source
party
said
had
the
won the
Department of
elections.
Defense
He
is still
opted what
investigating
he
how an
thought served
Iranian
his
drone
interests far more
managed to
than,
penetrate the
any ideals
base's
about
air
human rights
defense.
or democracy. It's really bewildering to me to believe that he would approach Iran in any different manner.
Now, Trita, you wrote a book about the original Iran nuclear deal. Here we are.
I don't
where
know
they're negotiating, or so
how-
were negotiating, close to getting a deal, according to the Omani media.
Like,
sources. But people in
are
Tehran
those
are telling
bases
me,
supposed to basically be
that they
impenetrable
believe now
as
that
long
all
as you're not like
Donald Trump was doing
overwhelming
was
them with
wasting
incomings?
time with
How
negotiations until
unexpected
the
is it
military
that an
assets were
Iranian
in
drone would
place,
be able to
and this
penetrate a
was
base's
the
defenses?
plan
That I
along
don't
to
know.
fight Israel's for them. Do you think that's a fair statement?
No, I think the reality is more complex than that perception that exists. I agree with you in certain parts of the Iranian system. I think, first of all, the assets have been in place for some time. Already 3 weeks ago, this war could have been launched.
Mr.
There
Bigley
were
on
various
Credibles has
delays, partly
mistakes.
because the
So I don't know.
Pentagon was
I don't
trying
know
to
what
convince
happened.
Trump not to do this in the first place by constantly asking for more assets. It wasn't that the diplomacy necessarily was there to buy time for more military assets to be brought into place. I do think that it is true that Trump is definitely following Israel's interests far more than he's following America's interests in this regard, and that the Israelis always wanted to sabotage this diplomacy. But I think there is an effort on the Israeli side to sell a narrative that says that from the outset, there was never any sincere diplomacy, that from the outset, the decision had been made months ago, weeks ago. And the reason why that serves the Israeli interest is because it really kills whatever little is left of America's diplomatic credibility. And it will make it next to impossible for anyone in the future to engage with the United States in diplomacy, which suits the Israelis just fine. They fought very hard to kill diplomacy. If they don't even have to kill diplomacy because it's not even tried, because the diplomatic credibility of the United States is in ruins, that actually serves their interests quite well.
I want to follow up on that, Trita, because is there any reason?
Hey, thanks so much. Abu
any Iranian
Mohandas
government
gave
to
50 more
come,
people
any Iranian leaders
memberships.
come
That's
to
really
trust the
kind of
US?
Abu Mohandas. Thank you, Abu. That's really nice of you.
No,
Make
I
sure
don't
you
think there
thank
will be
Abu if
any
you get a
trust
membership.
between the US or
Abu.
Iran, and
That's
there
really
will
nice
be
of you.
one on
Also,
the
thanks
American
to
side
Charles
across the
Goki.
Iranian
Yeah,
people.
we talked
But
about
reality is that
oil
all
prices
wars
being
end
up
in some shape or form in
a little
diplomacy
while
and
ago
negotiation.
before I ate.
This
Thank you,
one is not
Charles
going to be any
Goki. I
different.
appreciate
The
that. Also,
question is,
Mr.
how long will it
Personality,
take before we get to that
Steve
point?
Long.
The question
Thank you,
is if
Steve.
there is any exits,
And
face-saving
Jet
exits
Souls
for
forever.
both sides to be able to end something that clearly is moving in the direction of being a lose-lose-lose. A lose for the region, a lose for the Iranian and their Iranian people, as well as a lose for the United States.
Trita, thank you very much for your thoughts.
Thank you.
Now, the US and Iran have a long history of support, interference, and hostility. Patty Colhane takes a look back at how the two nations have supported and fought each other for decades.
The Shah of Persia has been paying a
Currently,
state visit
Brent
to
crude
President
is up at
Trump.
about
For more than 80
7.5%,
years, U.S. presidents have
roughly
put an unusual
$78
focus
or
on
so.
Iran.
Iran.
Beginning in World War II, Britain and the United States used Iran to funnel weapons to help Russia fight Nazi Germany. Successive presidents hosting, supporting, and applauding the Shah, Mohammad Pahlavi. In 1952, U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower authorized
Breaking
Operation
news from
Agent,
Bahrain.
giving the CIA authority to launch a coup, along with the British, to restore the Shah to power, after the Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, sought to nationalize the country's oil industry. President Eisenhower then
Bahrain says a fire broke out
program in 1957, giving Iran
on a
highly
foreign
enriched
ship
uranium and
in Salman
Saudi
Industrial City, Bahrain, as a result of fallen debris from an intercepted missile. The fire resulted in the death of an Asian worker and serious injuries to 2 others. The fire has been brought under control and extinguished. Again, this is from Bahrain. The government says a fire broke out on a foreign ship in Salman Industrial City as a result of falling debris from an intercepted missile. The fire resulted in the death of an Asian worker and serious injuries to 2 others. The fire has been brought under control and extinguished.
And Ayatollah Ali Khamenei took power of the newly
Again, that is
named
from
Islamic
the
Republic
government of Bahrain. They just
In November of
posted
1979,
that.
when President Carter allowed the Shah to come to the U.S. for medical treatment, students took over the U.S. Embassy, taking 52 Americans hostage. That and a botched rescue all but assured Carter's defeat to Ronald Reagan. The hostages were released as soon as he took office. During President Reagan's time in office, the U.S. secretly supported Iraq in its war with Iran, providing intelligence and economic aid to the Iraqi military. In 1983, the U.S. blamed Hezbollah, backed by Iran, for bombing the Marine barracks in Beirut, killing 241 Marines. It was later uncovered that the Reagan administration was also secretly selling weapons to Iran in order to fund rebels in Nicaragua. And in 1988, tensions increased when the U.S. Navy accidentally shot down an Iranian passenger jet, killing the 290 people on board. Modern presidents continue to try to pressure Iran with increasing sanctions, but after the September 11th attacks, then President George W. Bush put Iran high on the nation's enemies list, including it along with North Korea and Iraq in the axis of evil.
Iran aggressively pursues these weapons and exports terror, while an unelected few repress the Iranian people's hope for freedom.
President Barack Obama took a different approach, making an agreement with Iran along with other world powers to limit Iran's nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. A deal President Donald Trump ripped up in his first term, also launching a strike in Iraq to kill Qasem Soleimani, the leader of Iran's Quds Force. Now in his second term, launching military strikes for a second time, openly calling for regime change, a new and deadly chapter in a long history of U.S. involvement.
If you missed it earlier today,
Patty Culhane, Al
a
Jazeera, Washington.
a missile from Iran made a direct hit
Now, Mike, we talked about the conflict
near
and the objectives and all of that
Jerusalem
stuff just earlier. I want
and
to talk about
severely
diplomacy
damaged
with you
a
right now. Donald Trump has
synagogue,
hinted, certainly
according to
publicly,
Times
that
of
he is
Israel,
willing to talk
and
to
also
the
damaged
next Iranian
the,
regime when it comes into place.
I
We're
believe
talking
they
to
said it was
Abbasi, who is an Iranian expert. There's
like
no
this,
trust anymore
the
between
shelter, the
Iranians
bomb
and
shelter
the Americans.
in
But
the
there's no trust
synagogue.
between the Americans and
And
the
as a
Iranians
result of
either. So
that,
how are those talks
9
gonna
people
happen?
died
They
in
were talking
Israel,
earlier, then this war happened.
Well,
and over
President
40
Trump
were
has now
injured.
said bluntly that he has had messages that the Iranians want to
That
talk,
was in
and he
Beit
has said, yes, we will. He
Shemesh,
hasn't given any
Israel.
timeline to it, or indeed given any indication of where this offer for talks came from. He did say, however, that it's difficult because many of the negotiators in the past who were involved in those negotiations with the U.S. via Oman are, as he puts it, gone. In other words, they're among those who've been killed in the U.S. and Israeli strikes. And yet he does appear to convinced that there is some kind of
Yes,
possibility for some kind of discussion with some kind of as yet undisclosed or unidentified
the shelter was
group of
beneath a
Iranians who
synagogue,
would be
and
willing
the
to
synagogue
talk,
was hit.
with a man who's operating a military campaign against them. So President Trump is still, it seems, while carrying out these ongoing strikes, some 1,000 targets have been hit during this conflict, according to CENTCOM, is still, it seems, trying to get some kind of
Hey,
negotiation.
thank you,
going. So
Perectorius.
it's a bit
Perectorius,
confusing
it says
because
it
on
in
the
our
one hand, you've
headline.
got
The headline
strikes.
mentions
On
the
the other hand,
drone
you've got, yes, they want to talk, and
in
I am
Cyprus,
happy to
the
talk
drone hitting
without
the
giving any
UK air base
timeline
in
for
Cyprus. We talked
any
about that earlier. Thank
form
you.
of talk whatsoever. But it could perhaps be as well that Exit Ramp.
Regarding the UK, Keir Starmer said that
say
he's
mission
not that the UK
accomplished,
is not going to
which
be
is
involved in
something
any
that
offensive
clearly,
operations.
he would want
He
to
said
do,
in his announcement today
although,
from
as
the
we
UK Prime
have been
Minister
saying, we
that the
not
UK
quite
would
clear
allow,
exactly what that mission is.
I believe it was, he said
I
he
told you
they would
next
allow
about
the
the,
US to use the UK bases to help take out missiles
statement
on
was that military options are now on the table. That has to be alarming to the US. It might be too early to say to get an official reaction, but that statement must have caused ruffles within the DC political establishment.
Yes, within the political establishment, not necessarily within the White House, which would see that as now backing his operations and that of Israel's operations against Iran, whereas some of these states had been pretty critical of the U.S. decision to engage in this military combat in the first place. But Iran's retaliation has led to these statements coming out saying that they would reserve their right to also take action against Iran in response to the attacks on their territories. So, but the other politicians within the US, particularly Democrat ones, would see this as the confirmation of their worst fears, and that is a widening of the conflict throughout the Middle East as a whole. And that would be something that would be viewed as very dangerous to US interests domestically, as well as within the Middle East region. So there's once again that kind of dichotomy going on there in terms of what is going to happen next. We are talking about states that in recent years, or in this Trump administration, have become very close allies of President Trump's administration and are very important to his stated plans for a wider Middle East peace. Now, these players are some that could have an impact on what is happening now, but the problem, according to many of those Democratic mainly supporters, is a widening of that conflict, which is already raging in specific areas of the Middle East.
Absolutely, Mike. Thanks for bringing us all up to date. Now, let's go to Tawhid Asadi, who is live for us in Tehran. We talked about the attacks that just took place in Tehran. I want to kind of switch gears slightly and talk to you about the statement that the IRGC gave this morning, saying we were going to take revenge, effectively, I'm paraphrasing here, on Israel with a massive strike like the likes we haven't seen before. That's taken place. Has there been any follow-up from the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps about that?
Yes, there has. Of course, we've got this statement from IRGC a couple of hours ago about the ninth wave of retaliatory actions by these forces. And then they're saying that at least 40 people in Haifa have been killed as a result of these continuation of the strikes. And that's not it, of course, when it comes to the rhetoric that we have been hearing from different Iranian officials, including the Secretary for the National Security Council of the country, the President, as well as the head of Judiciary. They are all based upon this emphasis on the continuation of striking back as long as the Israeli and American strikes go on. And the reality on the ground is that the American and Israeli strikes are going on. A few hours ago, we were able to hear the sounds of actually fighter jets. And of course, I can say in 1 hour or so, we also heard sounds of massive explosions in the northern and also eastern and western parts of the Iranian capital, Tehran. Also, we've got reports from Ahvaz and from Bushehr and from other cities across the country that the continuation of actually Israeli strikes and American strikes is the reality on the ground. So no signs of de-escalation at the time being, and I can say that escalation is name of the game.
Tawhid, I want to talk to you about diplomacy. Donald Trump says he's heard from the Iranians. We don't know how that happened, whether they went through mediators, whether it was a direct plea, that they're willing to talk. Donald Trump says he's willing to talk. Has that been received well where you are in Tehran?
I don't think so. Just a few hours after the initiation of these strikes, I had a chance to have an interview with the spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the country, Ismail Baghai, and I asked exactly the same question. that whether there is a hope for diplomacy or not, and they are not really positive about such a possibility. And the reference to this vantage point is the very fact that for 2 times they were negotiating with the Americans over the past 1 year, while in June the country faced this campaign of strikes. The country was also planning to have a 6th round of talks between Tehran and Washington, while all of a sudden it faced actually strikes by the Americans and Israelis. And this time, that same scenario was exactly repeated after Iranians were expecting a new round of talks. They were expecting at least 2 rounds of talks, one about the technicalities of the nuclear dossier of the country, which was supposed to be held in Vienna on Monday, and of course another round in next week to settle down the issues diplomatically. They faced this campaign of strikes.
Tawhid Asadi, thank you so much. Now we're getting some reports from Bahrain. The Interior Ministry says more Iranian missiles have been intercepted and 1 person has been killed during the latest interception in an industrial area. 2 others were injured. France and Germany and the UK, otherwise known as the E3, have released a joint statement condemning Iranian strikes. It says E3 leaders are appalled by the indiscriminate and disproportionate missile attacks launched by Iran against countries in the region, including those who were not involved in the initial US and Israeli military operations. Iran's reckless attacks have targeted our close allies and are threatening our service personnel. We call on Iran to stop these reckless attacks immediately. And we also take steps to defend our interests and those of our allies in the region. We've agreed to work together with the US and allies in the region on this matter.
But the only way to stop the threat is to destroy the missiles at source, in their storage depots, or the launchers which are used to fire the missiles. The United States has requested permission to use British bases for that specific and limited defensive purpose. We have taken the decision to accept this request. I want to be very clear. We all remember the mistakes of Iraq, and we have learned those lessons. We were not involved in the initial strikes on Iran, and we will not join offensive action now. But Iran is pursuing a scorched earth strategy. So we are supporting the collective self-defense of our allies and our people in the region.
I want to bring you some breaking news right now. We are hearing that there are strikes taking place against the Lebanese capital of Beirut. We can show you some pictures of these now. These are live pictures from the Lebanese capital. Now, this has happened in the last few moments. I was speaking to our correspondent in Ramallah. You can see strikes taking place right now. Now, that looks to be in the distance there. And there you see rockets being launched from the capital, Beirut, as those strikes are coming in. Now, we were speaking to our correspondent, Nida Ibrahim, earlier, who said the Israelis had announced that they were going to take part in strikes against Lebanon itself. But this is the capital, Beirut, and watching rockets launch from the capital, Beirut, I haven't seen that in a very long time. This is an extraordinary barrage of rockets being launched from the capital. I don't know what neighborhood that is. Usually when the Israelis attack Beirut, it's in the Dahya neighborhood. The Dahya neighborhood is a stronghold for Hezbollah. It came under intense attack when Hezbollah and Israel went to war a year and a half ago. I was there covering that conflict. I recognize the kind of view there, but I can't confirm that that's what it was. But this barrage of strikes is still taking place. Rockets are being launched from Dahya itself. We'll get some details on this in a moment. But like I say, these are live pictures taking place right now. We don't know what the target is. Israel did say it was going to attack Beirut. It was going to attack the Lebanese territory because projectiles were launched from Lebanese territory into Israel. That launched air raid sirens across northern Israel. Hezbollah has claimed responsibility. I'm just hearing right now for those strikes taking place. There seems to be a slight lull. You can see the smoke rising there. This is a very large attack, and there you go. More rockets being launched into the air. These are extraordinary pictures, I have to say. I haven't seen this in Lebanon, in Beirut, for a very long time. Like I say, Hezbollah have claimed responsibility for the attacks taking place on Israeli territory. Projectiles fired earlier in the day. There was a response from the Israelis saying that they were going to attack Lebanese territory. Normally, those attacks have taken place in the south against what Israel calls Hezbollah infrastructure, but this now is taking place in the capital, Beirut. These are live pictures, as I say, coming from Beirut. Israeli airstrikes, Israeli drone strikes more likely coming in to that particular neighborhood there, and then fire, missiles being launched, rockets being launched back. Now, I am hearing that Hezbollah says it has launched missiles and drones towards Israel in retaliation for the killing of Iran's supreme leader, Khamenei. That is a Hezbollah statement there. Let's just stay with these pictures for a little while longer, but this seems like a far larger attack on Dahya that we've seen in a very long time. And that's a building that looks like it's just exploded. We've seen this before. During that war between Hezbollah and Israel, strikes came in, buildings were completely destroyed. Now, there is something that the Israelis have. It's called the Dahya Doctrine. It's worth just explaining what that is very quickly. The Dahya Doctrine says if there is a threat faced by Israel, that they will react with overwhelming force, regardless of whether there are civilians in the area or not. That Dahya Doctrine has always been the guiding principle, the guiding force of Israeli attacks when it comes to Lebanon and Hezbollah. It's been expanded somewhat. Some people would suggest when it comes to other places, but that's effectively, I think, effectively what we're seeing right now. Now, we've got a statement from the Israeli military. It says it's begun striking Hezbollah across Lebanon. So these are strikes that are taking place in Beirut. It's likely there are other strikes taking place in the south of Lebanon, where Israel says Hezbollah infrastructure is still in place and that Hezbollah is rebuilding its capacity to hit Iraq. That red flare you can see just coming up in your picture right now, that's tracer fire coming up. We don't know what they're aiming at there right there. It's likely to be the drones that are hovering above Lebanon's capital right now. But that smoke you can see is now coming from at least 3 different locations.